Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy. Joining me, Hartwell. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Kris. Good morning, everyone.
So, continuing on our journey of going through the gates one by one, the card that you selected was Gate 36 this week. So, what kind of energies are we contemplating when we look at Gate 36?
Well, with Gate 36, we're looking at some human drama. Um, in the ancient I Ching, this is called the darkening of the light. So the kind of energy we're looking at here is very experiential, collective experiential,
Mm-hmm.
where and it's in the emotional center, the solar plexus.
Mm-hmm.
So we have emotion that is generated through our experiential journey. This is what we're looking at here. Um, all the ups and downs and the dramas of life are reflected very powerfully in this gate.
Yeah, all the
Um,
changes that we go through,
yes, and
human
our
beings.
feelings about those changes.
Yeah, I always say some people are not good with change.
Hmm. Or there's just something that makes it all the more dramatic, all the more somehow
Bigger than life. Yeah.
bigger than life, or they add to it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
one of the metaphors that I love is the idea. It comes from one of the authors that I love. He says that what a lot of people do is they go through life and they have the experiences they have, but they slap the water. So imagine you're in a pool of water. You know how you're swimming and you're splashing other people and you're making everything as dramatic as possible. So slapping the water is the metaphor that he uses for people who create unnecessary drama. And I don't want to shame these people, but it's just their experience
Mm-hmm.
that, um, you know, the energy of soap operas is very much this gate.
Yeah,
You know,
I was just
there's
gonna
always
say, yeah,
all this drama is always going on,
yeah,
or if you watch Mexican or Spanish television, there's a
yeah,
lot of that too.
yeah.
But these are the folks that are here to grow through profound emotional experiences. And they're not making up that it really is their experience. I don't have gate 36, so I should not sort of poo poo it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're here to learn how to handle emotional experience.
Mm-hmm.
For them, they can be very excited about change, and they can very, very deeply overwhelmed by change.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a reflection of frequency, you could say. Um, it's a reflection of frequency. So you're more likely to see it as exciting the higher your frequency is.
Right.
Um,
So would it
yeah.
be like would it be depression on the other side of it? So like when the emotions are so overwhelming and the change is so much and it like could that create that state of depression in you where it's overwhelming? So you just want
Perhaps.
to escape kind of thing.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really just depends upon how that. Um, it wouldn't. It wouldn't likely be a clinical depression because clinical
Mm-hmm.
depression is often a flatness,
Mm-hmm.
right, and numbness.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this is not a numbness.
Okay.
This is experiencing the full thing,
Okay.
right? So, clinical depression, no. Colloquial depression, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, this is part of the channel of transitoriness. It meets up with gate 35 at the throat, the gate of change.
Mm-hmm.
So here you have crisis and change, crisis and change.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is an orientation towards change that is built in. It makes me think of that ancient Chinese proverb, maybe you be born in interesting times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where there is crisis, there is opportunity. And
Mm-hmm.
so here we have an alternate name for this gate is the compassionate sage. So
Interesting.
the intention behind this is to arrive at a different relationship to your own suffering. This
Mm,
is where fears of vulnerability and inexperience, both on the emotional level and the sexual level, are resolved and transformed into experience. Where we create and meet the challenges of change and growth through emotional crises. Over time, we gain emotional clarity. We learn how to deal with the emotional crises of others, and we create fewer emotional crises ourselves.
mhm,
So there is
mhm,
a maturation process. Interestingly, this gene key talks about how in most of the gene keys, it's quite clear that the maturation of the expression of that energy, whether it's the gift or the city, is not something we have control over. So whether we ever experience acidic energies of any particular gate is not in under
mhm,
our control. But this is one of the only
mhm,
gates where you have to earn it. So
mhm.
you earn your stripes, so to speak, I have been through it all. I have suffered, I have been through life.
Yeah.
Life has done its thing to me, and I've earned the compassion that I've arrived at.
Right.
So
So how do we?
that's
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, thought you were done.
I am done.
Oh, I was just going to move on to the next thing about how do we recognize the shadow of this gene key? Like, what kinds of things do we display when we're in the shadow of this?
Well, we can be very, very nervous. I think approaching life kind of like, oh, what's going to happen? I don't know. I'm afraid of what is going to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think people get nervous. The nervousness might be part of what keeps people from engaging with life fully,
Mm-hmm.
right? That would be the passive fear-based sort of response.
Mm-hmm.
Crisis prone would be the anger-based shadow response. The shadow is turbulence, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it really speaks to that slapping the water image that I spoke to a moment ago. So, um, yeah, so the turbulence is the shadow, and it's like there'd be that when you're in it, it's like, will life ever be calm? Will life ever be peaceful? Will I ever
Mm-hmm.
get to rest? Will life ever leave me alone? Is kind
Yeah.
of the energy
Well, I
of
think
turbulence.
about one of the people that we know that has this, and she just wants things to stay the same for a little while. Just like give me some peace. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this, as Richard Rudd points out, this is a battle that all of us have to face.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
all of us are at times, whether we have this gate or not, we're confronted with crisis or danger. And
Hmm.
in that moment where we're asked by life, how are we emotionally going to deal with those crises,
Hmm.
right? I mean, because there's the crisis itself. Having a having a big emotional response to it is not going to help us with the crisis.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not
You
going to help
know,
us get through it.
but it's also very human. It's
Hmm.
also very human to have our feelings about what life is throwing at us. So, this is what goads people to break through their boundaries of experience, to
Hmm.
learn what is dangerous and what is not, to learn what to kind of get all excited about and what not to get all excited about. So, it goads us to make breakthroughs.
Hmm.
And if we break through to the gift level, and then we come to a place of humanity. We come to a place of, oh my God, we're all in this mucky soup together.
Yeah. Exactly.
And there's no way that humans can entirely avoid this energy of crisis.
Hmm.
But it's also exciting because here we have, at the lowest level of the shadow, we also have the energy of sexual lust.
Hmm.
And I mean, how exciting is that? That's one of, if we watch our soap operas and if we watch our romances, this is one of the most, it's an exciting energy.
Hmm.
And if you take away any moral connotations from the idea of lust, it's a very pure energy. It makes
Hmm.
life really interesting.
Hmm.
People with the gate of crisis don't have boring lives.
No, there's always something going on. It's always, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
If there were, would people watch those soap operas if there was none of that energy? So,
Hmm.
yeah, I would say that I meeting life in a very timid, hesitant, nervous way would be to a way of recognizing how the shadow is operating.
Hmm.
Um, or to kind of thrash around and kind of go from one crisis to another. So you're in the emotional energy of having a crisis happening, and because
Hmm.
of your thrashing, you create more crises around you, right?
Yeah. And
So
sorry, a thought just came to me about when we talk about, especially people like Greg Braden, they talk about heart coherence. And I think about
mm,
that with this gate, about being able to process the emotions in a state of coherence so that you're making good decisions in those states of crisis rather than, you know, just responding so emotionally to it and, possibly making some things that are very detrimental to your life happen, right?
right, yes. And I think that would speak to a very mature response to the energy of the gate of crisis,
Mm-hmm.
to this gene key. And I think that's possible. And I think there are people, I mean, we spoke a couple of gene keys ago about grace,
Mm-hmm.
and how grace is that ability to move through life. Um, it feels a little bit opposite,
Mm-hmm.
almost,
Yeah.
to what we're talking about with turbulence.
Right.
So it is possible to move through life with that sort of gracefulness, even if you're
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
experiencing crisis. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, look at it this way. If we talk about the archetypal phrase, the dark night of the soul,
Mm-hmm.
it's referring to this gate.
Yeah. And it makes me think of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
this is not I'm having a hard time not having a little bit of a judgment somehow against this gate, but I mean, each one of the gates, as we've seen, has its shadow states. So why am I
Mm-hmm.
judging this one?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just recognizing and calling out my own bullshit here,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is a useful thing.
I also think it's interesting. I get a lot out of looking at the list of people that we know. And then, because this is part of your group on Thursday night where we can actually start using the information and what's your experience of that and how do you experience this person and stuff. So when I
Yes.
when I look at this list, there are a couple of people on here, especially that I would say are not in the shadow of this because I don't get that feeling from them when they're moving through life and when things are happening to them. And
Hmm.
and I know that one person has been through a lot of stuff, especially with their business and stuff. And I'm like, I would never, I don't see the emotional response from them like
Right.
I do from somebody else that I know in this gate. So I find that
Hmm.
very interesting. And so there must be like also a blend of the design, which also influences the effect of that gate on people as well.
Another effect you could potentially hypothesize is, do they have gate 36, which is in the solar plexus, but is their solar
Mhm.
plexus undefined?
Ah,
So the expression is going to be different if it's defined versus undefined.
yeah, exactly.
Um, mhm.
So it's
So that would be an
interesting.
interesting so these are the kind of questions that we want to kind of look at and raise when we talk in the discussion group that I'm holding once a month.
Yeah.
We start to peer into this and start to become more intelligent about what we're seeing in the world.
Yeah.
Um, so, but that dark night of the soul is recognized
Hmm.
as a very difficult passage, and that
Yeah.
happens for all of us at some point, where
Exactly.
the outer what's going on in the world, in our life, in terms of the events, calls everything into question for us.
Hmm.
Where we really wrestle with our faith and wrestle with our self-doubt.
Hmm.
And so we have to somehow alchemize that. We
Hmm.
have to somehow change that lead into gold. And I mean, potentially we get a taste of. So at the gift level of humanity, this is where we start to open our heart. This is the greatest catalyst. This gate is one of the greatest catalysts for the full opening of the human heart.
Hmm.
And somebody who has this gate and is reflecting it at the gift level is somebody who has a deep understanding of human emotion,
Hmm.
and really is able to embrace everything from the heart, and that becomes an antidote to the fear.
Hmm.
So it is a beautiful, beautiful gate that sort of connects us all together. Somebody with
Hmm.
this gate is not going to feel apart from all the other suffering humans.
Right.
Um, so it really, the spirit descends as we open our heart to embrace our pain and experience ourselves with compassion.
Yeah.
And these people are very, if you're going to seek somebody out when you are in the depth of your own despair, it's going to be somebody who has mastered or opened their heart through this gate.
It makes me
Um,
think of counselors or, healers or somebody like that would have this um, kind of effect with people. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, where they're not afraid of it anymore. And because of what they've gone through, they can hold you and hold the space for you so that you're not afraid of the pain and you can just let it wash over you and
Hmm.
move past you.
Hmm.
Um, It's very images of Christ and his life really are evoked by this one, because
Hmm.
he did not choose to avoid the pain. He cooperated in the destiny that God had shown him. He
Hmm.
cooperated with the Romans. He went peacefully. You know he and he showed us that he showed us through his embracing of the suffering, and
Hmm.
that it could be got through.
Yeah.
Um, so at the highest level, this becomes compassion.
Hmm.
Um, People with this gene keys always have a strong theme of emotional healing running through their life.
Hmm.
So these are not a lot of many of the rest of us try to escape our emotions by repressing it. But probably the gate 36 people are, no, no, I can't pretend. I
Hmm.
can't pretend. I can't pretend to repress it, or I can't successfully repress it.
Hmm.
Um, so here we see the true purpose of human suffering, which is to open the heart and to
Hmm.
kind of win us free from any kind of notion of victimhood.
Hmm.
Um,
So, is there anything that you want to say to wrap up? We're running a little over today. So,
well, wrapping up this particular energy, I would say be compassionate with yourself
hmm.
and um, feel what you need to feel so that you can get past it, rather than lock it in as a negative frequency. And I would say, if you like the discussions that we have here, then if you've had a human design reading, you might want to come to our monthly discussion groups,
Hmm.
where we choose a topic and then look at it in depth and let it open up into a discussion about how our lives are lived and how we view and see other people living their lives in relationship to the topic that
Yeah.
we're looking at. It's going
Yeah,
to be
it's
very
very
enriching.
enlightening. Yeah, it's very enlightening to start having understanding of other people and then you're in relationship with them, and okay, well, I recognize that they're, emotionally defined and I'm not. And what does that mean when I'm interacting with them? And what is their experience? And what is my experience of that? And so it's pretty valuable. Yeah. So
Our next evening, our next meeting is this Thursday, the 28th, at Clair-i-tea. You can register on Eventbrite. Hope to see you there.
all
If
right.
not this one, then a subsequent one.
Well, with that, we'll say goodbye. Thank you all for joining us today, and God bless. We'll see you next Wednesday.